Sanctuary policies and public safety debated as Illinois House resolutions criticize the Trump administration. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning live on YouTube for The Center Square. Go to thecentersquare.com and you'll find the latest headlines from Illinois and beyond. Get the newsletter in your inbox just simply by filling out that info. It's a free newswire service for you to better understand how your government's impacting you, the taxpayer. And we focus here on Illinois. Again, I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois at the Center Square. A couple of things we're going to be talking about, of course, legislative activity. What did they do yesterday? It's day 2 of the state's Illinois General Assembly veto session, and now we're in day 3, but the Senate canceled. The House is in session today, so we'll see what they take care of as the day progresses. But some of the big things that we are going to be hearing about, maybe not in entirety this week, but definitely by the end of October, how much in tax increases they're going to be to bail out mass transit, how much energy policy is going to pass in an omnibus package that could impact energy prices. All of these things obviously on the table, including conversations about the Bears moving out of Chicago to Arlington Heights, and how that may have to involve the state of Illinois. So clearly there's tons to tackle, but all of that while you've got the ongoing debate about public safety and immigration enforcement. So that's actually where we're going to start this morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Again, here each and every weekday morning with you live. You can get the segments after the fact. You can watch the entire live broadcast repeat here on YouTube, but definitely get to thecentersquare.com so that you can get the latest headlines in your inbox. All right? So make that happen and stay tuned as we continue with Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square.
The sanctuary policies, I think, need to be absolutely repealed. The Trust Act needs to be repealed.
We may be able to make tweaks to the law to protect people better in the state, although, as you know, I think we've done a pretty good job of Trump-proofing the state as best we could.
Chicago is going to be okay. We're going to save Chicago.
That somebody's got to be the bigger person, whether it's the president, the governor, or the mayor, to say that we all should want the same thing, and that is to protect the people in Illinois and Chicago. And so someone should make the call. Someone should say, how can we work together?
Well, who's going to make that call? Governor J.B. Pritzker or President Donald Trump, especially when the two are in court over the use of the National Guard and other public safety issues around immigration enforcement. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning here. Of course, you can catch the headlines in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com and sign up today. Let's get to it. Yesterday at the Illinois General Assembly, legislators back in session. Yesterday was day 2 of fall veto session. They've got 6 days scheduled, so we've only got 4 days left, including today, and the Senate already canceled. So the House is in session. We'll see what they tackle. But obviously, a lot of conversation about public safety. The next segment, we're going to hear some floor debate. But before all of that happened, I was able to bounce around and talk to several legislators, especially on the news that we had yesterday. of the Department of Homeland Security saying that they have intelligence. Mexican cartels are putting out bounties for federal officials, including up to $50,000 for the assassination of high-ranking federal officials. So you clearly have DHS, putting that message out that their federal law enforcement officers are under threat, but they said they won't be deterred by that. But they also yesterday put this out. DHS sets the record straight on vehicle ramming attack and kidnapping lie about American teenager who assaulted law enforcement. Tuesday, October 14th, it's Customs and Border Protection. We're conducting an immigration enforcement operation in Chicago. An illegal alien used his vehicle as a weapon and rammed a Border Patrol vehicle attempting to flee the scene. Border Patrol pursued the suspect and managed to bring them to a stop after utilizing an authorized precision immobilization technique, pit maneuver. Agents apprehended and arrested the two illegal aliens from Venezuela who attacked law enforcement. While agents were trying to secure the scene, a violent mob surrounded law enforcement and began throwing objects at them, necessitating the use of crowd control measures and resulting in multiple arrests. And it goes on to, quotes the assistant secretary, and you can read that at the DHS's website. But these are the two individuals that DHS says were apprehended. DHS also sharing more from what they're getting in their immigration enforcement. And you've got another headline here from DHS: meet some of the worst of the worst, the Illinois Broadview ICE facility in Illinois. And this news release goes through some of the individuals that they have apprehended. Illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of disorderly conduct, arrest for assault, 2 pending charges of assault and obstructing justice, another individual, 2 counts of felony robbery, another individual convicted of assault, and 3 pending charges of aggravated assault with a weapon, assault, and damage to property. Others, theft of business setting greater than $10,000 to $100,000, simple assault, 2 pending charges of assault, driving under the influence, and several others. So these were just some of the individuals that ICE is saying that they have captured, the quote, worst of the worst at the Broadview facility. But to that headline that we talked about yesterday of ICE agents being targeted and the issues of intelligence DHS has of agents with bounties on their heads. I talked to State Representative Patrick Sheehan. He is also a police officer. And I also chatted with State Representative LaShawn Ford, a Democrat out of Chicago, about this issue. And Sheehan, a law enforcement officer, reacted that this is hard to hear and says some rhetoric from Democrat leadership. It's not helping.
Well, I mean, I think myself, my colleagues in law enforcement, and the House Republican caucus have been sounding the alarms for weeks about how dangerous and disturbing this rhetoric is from Governor Pritzker, referring to law enforcement as the Nazi secret police, saying that they're the Gestapo, jackbooted thugs. I mean, this type of rhetoric not only dehumanizes the men and women of law enforcement, it puts a target on the backs of, and bounties on the backs of law enforcement. I mean, this disgusting rhetoric just needs to stop. The men and women of law enforcement are the ones out there holding the line, and I really urge the governor to apologize, walk back his comments, and get behind the men and women of law enforcement.
Now, when I asked Representative LaShawn Ford to react to the news that federal agents are having bounties put on their heads, according to DHS, and some of it included the statement from DHS that they're working with antagonist groups and having them be spotters and in some various neighborhoods of Chicago. From the Austin neighborhood, State Representative LaShawn Ford reacted to that news. And let's fire it off.
You know, the action of the federal government to come in with warlike activity has caused a warlike mentality in the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago. So I think that if we as politicians and as professional individuals could actually come together and show that we could work together, I think that that would be helpful. But when you have state and federal fighting one another, but then we expect for the criminals to do right and work together to fight crime, it's not going to work. So we have to lead by example.
He also went on to discuss just the issue of cooperation and how federal law enforcement need to cooperate better with local law enforcement.
I mean, if we're going to really fight crime and those threats, then I think that the federal government should be working with local law enforcement. I think the federal government, the president, should actually speak to the governor and the mayor of the city of Chicago. This is serious, and I think that it takes all hands on deck to fight crime. You can't have one unit of government coming in dominating without working with the boots on the ground. And those are the law enforcement agents that know those communities and that can help them.
And how that's going to happen, we'll continue to watch and see. Patrick Sheehan, Republican state representative and a member of law enforcement, saying that this is an issue of leadership taking a lead.
I am completely and utterly sickened. As a police officer for over 19 years, I've been, trying to process the comments from Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker. And when you hear Governor Pritzker call law enforcement the Gestapo and jackbooted thugs, and you have Mayor Johnson saying that law enforcement is a sickness that needs to be eradicated, law enforcement is the solution. We're the ones that hold the line. We keep our communities safe. We answer the call. And I really just urge Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson to apologize for their comments and stand behind the men and women of law enforcement.
So who's going to make that first call to have some cooperation? Governor J.B. Pritzker asked a bit about the back and forth in courts between his administration and the Trump administration, public safety, immigration enforcement, and such. Here's the governor from yesterday.
We obviously want to make sure that there aren't troops on the ground in the city of Chicago or anywhere in Illinois, federalized troops. And so we're hopeful. We're obviously going to go to court to try to make sure that we keep in place what has been a freezing of the situation and making sure they stay on federal installations or stop federalizing troops altogether.
Now, what that looks like in courts, we have yet to fully see, but the progression of where it's at now, temporary restraining order granted in the district court. Trump's administration took that to the appeals court. The appeals court denied the Trump administration's emergency motion to reverse that. So now it's back to the merits, and how that's going to play out, we'll be watching closely. But obviously, the issue of public safety in Illinois, something that the governor has to continue to talk about. And the governor today is actually going to be holding a news conference later this morning with former high-ranking members of the military. So we'll see what he has to say there and what his guests have to say at that news conference. So we'll bring that to you tomorrow. But again, here's the governor from yesterday.
Well, I want to start by saying it's hyper unusual for the federal government not to communicate with the state or local governments about what their intentions are. Very, very unusual. We really haven't seen this in Illinois or in the country for decades, to not communicate with local and state government. So putting that aside, and as you know, Pete Hegseth was supposed to call me last week. They set it up so that I would be ready for a call from him, letting me know that they were going to federalize troops. Never received a call. He was apparently at a football game and didn't have time to make a call about federalizing troops and sending them into our states to militarize our city. I think, it's obviously if they plan to stay through December, they intend to create even more mayhem on the ground. And this is a decision by Donald Trump and his administration to cause the kind of disruption that they've been causing for the last, 10 weeks in Chicago and in Illinois. My bet is they're going to try it in other cities as well. And all I can say is that we've got to bring an end to this. The federal government and Donald Trump need to recognize that this is not the way that you do immigration enforcement, and you shouldn't be throwing in the idea that you're involved in fighting crime when you're not helping us with local civilian law enforcement assistance or with federal civilian law enforcement assistance.
Now, President Donald Trump held a news conference yesterday afternoon with Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. They were talking about the outcome of Operation Summer Heat, which was an enhanced and increased violent crime law enforcement operation that included in Chicago. And President Trump talked about how his goal isn't to cause chaos, or as the governor has indicated is his thoughts, that the president wants to interfere in the 2026 election. President Trump says no, he's looking to make cities safe.
But in a little while, you're going to see some numbers that you're not going to believe. And I think you'll probably start with Memphis, because I'm hearing the numbers are much quicker than we even thought possible. But again, D.C. it speaks for itself. Chicago is going to be okay. We're going to save Chicago. And I told you, and I told them, a very respected man, the head of the Union Pacific, said, "Sir, save Chicago. It can be saved." And the way he said it, it was like, can you believe it? We're trying to save Chicago. But I understood exactly what he wants, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to save all of our cities, and we're going to make them essentially crime-free.
Now, how that's going to happen, even Representative LaShawn Ford says it's going to take cooperation and communication.
Well, I think it's important that we recognize that going at it solo, that somebody's got to be the bigger person, whether it's the president, the governor, or the mayor, to say that we all should want the same thing, and that is to protect the people in Illinois and Chicago. And so someone should make the call. Someone should say, how can we work together?
Again, this is all about public safety, but also public safety around federal law enforcement of federal immigration law. And Illinois has migrant sanctuary policies in place that prohibit state and local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration enforcement for criminal detainers, or rather for civil detainers. They can cooperate with criminal detainers, just not the civil detainers. And we don't really get into that delineation in how this is being discussed, especially when you see the headlines again out of DHS talking about the worst of the worst that they gather. But even DHS says that politicians from migrant sanctuary jurisdictions need to cooperate with federal law enforcement in all of this. But in Illinois, that doesn't seem to be what's happening. There might be an effort underfoot here to reflect a change that a Cook County judge recently ordered to keep federal immigration officials out of jail or out of county court buildings. And is that something that the state legislature is going to look to make statewide as they essentially took it away from the local sheriffs to cooperate with federal immigration officials? Are they going to do that for courts as well? House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch yesterday held a news conference. He was asked about that issue, and is that a piece of legislation that's going to advance during fall veto session? Here's the Speaker.
I want to commend Chief Judge Evans for that order, but as you just stated, that is only for Cook County. I do think it's important that we look at legislation that would possibly help statewide, but this process takes the House, the Senate, and the governor's office to agree. We want to look at language. We want to make sure lawyers are all on the same page. If we can do something similar statewide, I'd love to get that done, because what's happening with these masked ICE agents in courthouses and territories around courthouses is unacceptable. People are afraid to go to court. They're afraid to comply with subpoenas. We can't allow that. These should be safe spaces.
Governor J.B. Pritzker asked about it as well yesterday, and here's what he had to say.
Well, I know the legislature is looking at that, and I certainly have heard of a few bills that might move, but look, there are limits to what a state can do. There just are. And this situation really hasn't arisen since the Civil War. So I find it, challenging. It is a challenge that constitutionally difficult to overcome, but I do think the courts are assisting us, and private attorneys that are coming in and filing suit, like the TRO that limits what ICE is doing, are assisting us. And we may be able to make tweaks to the law to protect people better in the state. Although, as you know, I think we've done a pretty good job of Trump-proofing the state as best we could, despite the fact that he is clearly attacking every state in the country. in ways that I find abhorrent.
But you've got Republicans saying that the state needs to go the other way instead of trying to tweak the Trust Act that prohibits state and local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration officials. Patrick Sheehan says they should just completely reverse course.
The sanctuary policies, I think, need to be absolutely repealed. The Trust Act needs to be repealed. We've seen the misdirection of the Chicago Police Department and local law enforcement. They're not sure what to do. When you take away the instinct from a police officer, you've completely broken how law enforcement operates. We're the ones that hold the line. When someone calls law enforcement for help, we go. We just go. And when you have an officer second guess themselves on whether their order is illegal or not, that puts not only the officer in danger, but that puts communities and its citizens in danger as well.
We'll hear more about this as Governor J.B. Pritzker has a news conference today with former high-ranking members of the military. And clearly, I think he's going to be talking more about his thoughts on the Trump administration's plans and orders to use the National Guard to help with public safety and protect federal assets and personnel while we see what the legislature does. All right, it's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily each and every weekday morning. Get the newsletter in your inbox and wake up with us here for the Center Square. All right, one last segment here, guys.
Because we won't sit back and let our democracy be taken from us. We're going to speak up while we can. History will judge those who are silent in this moment. And we're going to speak up today. We're going to stand up for our democracy.
You think it's tyranny? Seriously? We sat here for 2 years under tyranny from your tyrannical governor when he shut down this state, when he abused children, when he destroyed our economy. You sat here for 2 years under that tyranny. You didn't say a peep. You hid under your desk. So don't talk to me about tyranny or fighting tyranny.
Some of the action from the Illinois General Assembly yesterday as day 2's in the books. We got day 3 today, but the Senate's already canceled. And the House will be in session. What are they going to tackle? What was talked about yesterday? It's Illinois in Focus Daily, where you can wake up and get the latest of what's going on with Illinois state governments. When they are in session, we are on the ground with the Center Square. So get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. But again, wake up with us for Illinois in Focus. So yesterday was day 2. The power went out in the middle of the day. It was pretty wild. Right in the middle of floor debate, all of a sudden, I'm in the office with a bunch of monitors, writing, listening, editing, helping get stuff where it needs to go for affiliates and subscribers, and all of a sudden all the technology goes down. Laptop screens frozen. Those computers plugged into the walls off. Power went out, so even some battery backups for the entire Capitol building did kick in, but it was kind of dicey for some people. The elevator still worked, but the lighting was... So that lasted for about 30 minutes, kind of threw a wrench into things for a bit, delayed some of the activity, but they're in full swing to a certain degree, right? And what we've seen so far this week is conversations and caucus meetings, and we don't get access to those caucus meetings. We can only get reports out about what's going on, but Democrats are, it's speculated, are haggling about the transit cliff and what kind of tax increase there should be. There's also the energy omnibus bill to prop up battery storage and wind and solar more, but that could add on costs, so people are apprehensive about joining onto that. So the Democrats have been caucusing a lot this week, and while the Illinois Senate has recessed until the end of the month for the final 3 days of fall veto session, the Illinois House is in session today, so we'll see what they have to say on the House floor, and we'll bring you that here with Illinois in Focus Friday morning. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can wake up with us. But they started the day yesterday with a hearing about the Regional Transit Authority's fiscal cliff. Now, this is the issue where they were trying to pass in the spring session a $1.50 delivery tax on retail delivery. So if you got a pizza, it would have a $1.50 on it. If you bought a motorcycle from Amazon, it would have a $1.50 charge on it. So it didn't matter how much the issue or the retail delivery was coming to you, it would have added a $1.50 tax on it. And downstate politicians were like, no, we don't want to tax our people anymore, to bail out Regional Transit Authority, Mass Transit, and Mass Transit was saying they had a $770 million fiscal cliff by the end of this year, and they were raving that issue up during spring session. But now the fiscal cliff has diminished. Here's just some of the back and forth during this House hearing about the fiscal cliff issue.
Let me start by the 3-year projections on the fiscal cliff. 230 million, 834, 937. Are those numbers just shoring up and making the system healthy, or do they include any expansion, or are we just going to get it healthy and then we'll worry about expansion later?
Unfortunately, this is the floor, certainly not the ceiling. This is baseline to maintain existing services that we have. This is not the scenario that anybody wants to be talking about, but it is the floor.
So they've modified the fiscal cliff, and a lot of that was COVID dollars that are expiring. Or have expired, and by the end of the year, they're going to have that tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. But you have State Representative Cam Buckner talking about the priorities of mass transit, and especially when they had a recent ad that they funded with $500,000 to urge the public to get legislators to give mass transit more money.
I'll just echo the sentiments of my colleague and counterpart, Leader Delgado. I think a lot of what you're hearing from my colleagues here is that there's an extreme and unfortunate deficit of trust, right? And that has to be rebuilt. In fact, I would posit to you that the trust cliff is just as steep and just as abrupt as the fiscal one. And so no matter what happens as we attempt to move this engagement forward, I would hope that we can have those honest conversations.
Buckner went on to talk about just the overall issue of mass transit and where we go from here.
I'll just say I think it's, and I've been very clear on the record about this publicly, and I'll continue to say it here today. The best PR campaign for RTA and any other service agencies is reliable transit. It's not spending $500,000 to remind the General Assembly that you're running out of money. It's not, some people use the word coerce or cajole. I felt that it was a bullying effort, and I don't think it worked. I think the right thing for you all to do would have to be to come to us and have a conversation and continue some of these, I think, more robust and effective back and forths that we've had over the last couple of months.
What happens with this issue, we don't know yet. The Senate, again, canceled today's session. The House is in session. Now, the Senate in May, they passed the transit omnibus bill with some regulations and reforms on mass transit with the tax increases included to pay for the fiscal cliff. The Senate passed that, so the ball's in the House's court. And what the House does next, we'll be watching. Of course, after today, they've got 3 full days scheduled. The last week of October, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that week, just before Halloween. So what's going to happen with the transit issue, not too sure. Another issue they've been talking a lot about is energy, and we'll see what they do with that as well. But Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, he held a news conference outside the Speaker's office yesterday with members of the Democratic caucus, and he laid out what they were going to do Tuesday and why they were going to be standing up to the Trump administration.
But we're also going to talk about the state of our democracy, because people across Illinois are terrified that our democracy is slipping away. So we're going to go to the floor. We're going to start at noon, and we're going to present some resolutions today. We're going to condemn political violence in all forms, whether it comes from a gunman radicalized by the darkest corners of the internet, or masked ICE agents. We're going to recognize that substantive due process is the only thing that separates a lawful detention from a kidnapping. And we're going to support the First Amendment rights that make all that possible. That's what we're going to do today. Because we won't sit back and let our democracy be taken from us. We're going to speak up while we can. History will judge those who are silent in this moment. And we're going to speak up today. We're going to stand up for our democracy. And that's our plan for today.
Again, the speaker talking about what they were going to do Tuesday or Wednesday rather, and they laid out a bunch of different resolutions. But the speaker was asked about other issues like energy costs and how that's going to be addressed.
We're building consensus on a number of substantive issues that we hope to get done during this time that we are here. It's critical that we get things done to address important issues that are going on in this state. People want us to address affordability issues.
What about the property tax issues? What about the gas tax issues? Highest property taxes in the nation, second highest gas taxes in the nation, highest gas taxes in the Midwest, and you got workers' comp costs for businesses and other things. You've got House Republican State Representative Brad Halbrook saying that there's been no conversation about how to ease the ongoing burden of what the Democrats' General Assembly have put on taxpayers in the state of Illinois over a decade.
Yeah, so right on cue, the Democrats always go to it's always somebody else's fault. It's their bad policy that's driving the cost of living up, making all these things more difficult in the state of Illinois. They're doing nothing to address the high cost of living when it comes to property taxes, which we're now number one in the state. Gasoline taxes that we're now number two in the state, some places number one. The energy costs are skyrocketing, doubling and tripling for consumers, homeowners, business people alike. The list goes on and on. Again, we've seen this movie before over and over again, and they do nothing to address the policy they've made that is driving these costs up.
Now, Welch talked a little bit about energy and what he hopes to get accomplished with an omnibus bill, and he says it's about addressing high costs.
Transit, keeping trains running on time, buses running on time, the ability for people to get to and from work is a very important issue that we're hard at work on. And we're hoping to get something done on that. Bringing down the costs of utility bills that are scary right now. We're trying our best to get something done on that.
And Halbrook says the best way to do something about it is to reverse course for Illinois policies.
Yeah, so we just have to reform the policy, right? I mean, on energy, we have to rethink the CEJA and the bills that are being circulated this summer and fall have to be rethought. We've got to have the baseload generation of coal and natural gas. All the while, the majority party wants to phase that out. That's what's driving costs up.
So that was all before going into session where they had debate about resolutions, not bills. Nothing passed yesterday to reform the state's energy policies. Nothing passed yesterday to address the transit fiscal cliff. Here is what passed yesterday. You did have a House bill pass both chambers about weight limit exemptions on highways. We'll have to delve into that bill. But you have others, including, some that were moved to committees and such, and a whole host of other things. But you have resolutions that as well were adopted. For instance, you've got resolutions they debated with State Representative Avalar saying that due process is something that they're focused on and criticizing the Trump administration's handling of immigration enforcement.
Literally what we're talking about is due process. We're talking about upholding the Constitution. We are talking about something that when I was a community organizer, I said time and time again, which is that everybody in the United States has constitutional rights. And this resolution affirms that. So I request.
So they were talking about due process, and it was in the middle of her presentation of her resolution where the power went out. And she had to come back and kind of reintroduce the measure, but others were talking. We've heard the rhetoric. Trump is an authoritarian. We've heard the word tyrant being used in debate. Republican State Representative Blaine Wilhauer got up and saying, "Look in the mirror."
Governor J.B. Pritzker has deliberately sowed seeds of chaos. He's promoted resistance to law enforcement. He's even now threatening to prosecute members of law enforcement just for doing their job. That's ridiculous, because that's the same law enforcement agents who have put their lives at risk, taking murderers, rapists, pedophiles, sex traffickers. That's all documented. They've taken those people off the streets in Chicago, and his disgusting cheerleading has emboldened, it's absolutely emboldened these anti-American agitators that he's got on the streets of Chicago, and has put them into direct conflict with law enforcement. And our own speaker, he's not innocent either. He stood on this floor and ranted and raged like a lunatic, yelling, "Fascism, fascism." Do you think it's any mistake that that was written on a bullet that killed Charlie Kirk? It's that you want to talk about violent political rhetoric, there it is. And then he goes on social media and says, "Fight, fight, continue fighting." Who does he think that these people are fighting? You think it's tyranny? Seriously? We sat here for 2 years under tyranny from your tyrannical governor when he shut down this state, when he abused children, when he destroyed our economy. You sat here for 2 years under that tyranny. You didn't say a peep. You hid under your desk. So don't talk to me about tyranny or fighting tyranny. What you're fighting, when you're telling people to fight, your followers are fighting law enforcement.
Wilhauer obviously making that impassioned speech just in the general theme of what he's heard from Democrats for, well, the past 9 months. Here is State Representative Amy Briel talking about another resolution. And again, these are just resolutions, kind of like, this is the official position of the Illinois House. Resolutions essentially critical of the Trump administration. And in this one, it focused on the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., who has certain perspectives about all of these issues of public health and vaccines and such. But the representative said that what she's seen is dangerous.
Trump and Kennedy's weaponization of misinformation and politicized science replace fact with fear, erode public trust, and ultimately tears down decades of work and progress for those of us with different disabilities.
And the conversation went from the issue of those on the autism spectrum and the comments that have been recently made by RFK Jr. or the Tylenol issue that happened several weeks ago with the Trump administration putting out that warning for pregnant mothers and such, and a whole host of other things that RFK Jr. and the Make America Healthy Again campaign that he's pushed for are doing. So Democrats in Illinois pushing back against that with this resolution. But Republican State Representative Bill Howder, who's also a medical doctor, he pushed back on this resolution and said, again, when you talk about weaponizing misinformation about health, he says, look back at the COVID.
I lived through real weaponization of public health policy during COVID by the Biden administration, by the Pritzker administration. Lockdowns of businesses, small businesses, selected businesses, not every business. They centered on family businesses and small businesses in my district. Social distancing, there was no science around that, but we were forced to comply. Mask mandates in low-risk populations. Do you remember the chin straps our children wore for far too long? There was no science around that. But we were forced to comply, or our school boards were shut down. Vaccination mandates. My kids had vaccination passports. We had coerced compliance with vaccinations. You'd lose your job, couldn't go to school. You couldn't travel. How many people were kicked out of our military? Thousands. Natural immunity was totally ignored. We forced churches to shut down. Police were outside churches. But somehow, magically, the protesters that were all out there in mass protests were fine, and they were protected from COVID. Oh, and the Biden administration tried to force vaccinations on 80 million people through OSHA. But the worst for me, the absolute worst, because I participated in it, is our hospitals and our nursing homes forced loved ones who were suffering and dying to die without their loved one, the person who loved them most, being beside them, to care for them and to touch them as they died. We can have an honest conversation about the politicization of health policy, but don't ignore the ultimate in weaponization of public health policy.
So that's just some of the debate yesterday. A lot more coming up. They got day 2 in the books. Now day 3. House is in. The Senate canceled. We'll be on the ground, and we'll be back with you tomorrow here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning for more from the Center Square. Guys, that's all I got for you today. Got to head out to the Capitol and see what the House is going to give for us. And we'll be back tomorrow, of course. I mean, the governor's got an event today as well, so we'll hear more from him. What's on the president's schedule? Is he going to be talking? So tons more to tackle here. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Greatly appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning. The live chats is always lively, and be sure to share this up. And if you can't watch live, you can always catch the podcasts or the segments. Maybe you don't want to watch the floor debates, or maybe you don't want to watch the conversation about whatever. You can just focus in on whatever segment you want to see each day as well. All right, I got to get out of here. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow to wrap up the week with Illinois in Focus Daily. Go to thecentersquare.com, get those headlines in your inbox, and we will see you here tomorrow for more Illinois in Focus Daily. By the way, somebody suggested that it was my birthday in the live chat. It is not my birthday today. I think that same guy who's said that before has this running gag where he every 3 or 4 months, they'll just say, hey, wish Greg happy birthday. So it's not my birthday. That's misinformation. My birthday is not October 16th. All right. Have a great day.